Alarmobot is a classic, neutral, rare, 0/3 for 3 mana, whose card text reads, "At the start of your turn, swap this minion with another minion in your hand." According to Arena value, Alarmobot is picked less than 2% of the time in Arena. Adwicta gives Bot his worst possible rating, beyond terrible, in Arena, and Trump agrees, also giving Alarmobot his worst possible rating, and the spot is the 5th worst neutral rare card. Alarmobot is a card that's just fun to have in Hearthstone. He's bad most of the time, but when he's good, amazing and or hilarious things can happen. In card games though, bad most of the time pretty much just means bad, period. No point in beating around the bush, Alarmobot is a bad card given the current card pool. Any opposing deck worth its salt will be able to deal with a 3 health minion on turn 3, or any other turn really. Alarmobot is obviously best in decks with big dudes in it. It's important to know that the minion that swaps out for Alarmobot still has summoning sickness, so don't get too excited counting on Deathwing to do an immediate 12 damage to your enemy before getting BGH. This makes Bot better with immediate impact cards like Ragnaros or Malygos. Obviously, you should try to clear the small minions out of your hand before playing Bot if you can. Alarmobot's swapping effect happens prior to drawing your card for the turn, so there's no need to worry about that. If the only minion you have in your hand is Ysera, you're 100% safe. Minions summoned by Bot appear on the right of the board, and do not activate their battle cries or choose one effects. So Ancient of Lore will be a 5/5 without taunt, and Injured Blade Master will be an uninjured 4/7. If you have 2 Alarmobots on the field and say Ysera in hand, Bot 1 will swap with Ysera, while Bot 2 will swap with Bot 1, which has already been returned to your hand. This scenario will likely never come up for you, but Alarmobot and Doomsayer have one of the weirdest interactions I've seen in the game. If you play Bot first and then Doomsayer, and Bot survives, then whatever gets swapped will die to Doomsayer. That much makes sense. But if you play Doomsayer first and then Bot, Bot will swap with a minion, and that minion will survive Doomsayer's effect. You get the Bot back in your hand, but if you play him, he dies immediately. It's the only instance I can think of where a minion that's returned to your hand retains some attribute that it got when it was on the board. In a similar vein to this, Alarmobot will survive being nightmared or power overwhelming, but he won't die when you play him again, like he does with Doomsayer. Alarmobot synergizes with most high mana cost minions because he allows you to cheat them out without paying their mana cost, and indeed this is the main reason to play him. Conceal and Master of Disguise are some of the best options available to ensure that you keep Alarmobot alive until the start of the next turn. It's easy to forget that Alarmobot is a mech and has all of the tribal synergies that come along with that. Wee Spellstopper and Sturdy Taunts might be able to give you enough protection to keep Alarmobot alive until the start of the next turn. Wailing Soul has anti-synergy with Alarmobot like it does with most cards with card text. Some counters to Alarmobot include Cabal Shadow Priest, Crazed Alchemist, any and all silences, easy sources of 3 damage, Shadow Word Pain, and Stampeding Kodo. This deck is based on an idea I got from a player named Realz, who is a former professional Hearthstone player and current member of the Hearthstone balance team. So send your complaints about Dr. Boom to Ryan Realz Masterson. But anyways, let's look at the cards. So we got our 2 Alarmobots, and you'll notice kind of a dearth of big dudes here. What are we doing here? Well, the only big dude we need is Malygos. And what we need Malygos for is to Alarmobot him out, and then leave all of our mana free to cast all of our damage spells. So how are we going to get Alarmobot to survive? Well, that's why we're playing Rogue. We've got 2 Conceals here. So Alarmobot Conceal is actually fairly safe. I mean, a lot of classes can take it out, but some will be helpless to take out your Alarmobot. So let's go through the rest of the cards. Backstab's good removal, and then once you get Malygos out, it's like free 7 damage rather. Preparation. Prep is good to combo things, and it's also mainly meant to synergize with Sprint and Vanish, because those are such expensive spells. We talked about the 2 Conceals. Those are for Alarmobot. They're also for Doomsayer, which we'll talk about later. 2 deadly poisons. You just need that to be able to use your weapon effectively to kill 3 health minions. Pretty self-explanatory. 2 blade flurries. You need some AoE in this deck. 2 eviscerates. We need the damage from eviscerates, so it's a good cheap spell that does a lot of damage. 2 saps. 2 saps may be too many. Maybe 1 sap was better. I'm kind of missing Sinister Strikes from this deck now that I look at it, so I probably should cut some things for Sinister Strike. 2 Shivs. Really need a bunch of card draw in this deck because you have to get to Malygos. 2 Doomsayers. So Doomsayer works with Conceal. Doomsayer is really ideal if you're going to be behind because you want to be able to drop him and clear their board 1 turn and prevent them from developing their board for the next turn as well. A Loot Hoarder, just to cycle. Actually, I think Blood Mage Thalnos might be better here, but I wasn't really thinking about that when I made the deck, so I just put a Loot Hoarder in. 2 Fan of Knives. They're pretty good area of effect. They can take out muster for battles and stuff, but it's mainly in there for the card draw. We talked about Alarmabot. Sabotage, it gives you the ability to take out maybe a big threat, and it also gives you weapon removal, which is pretty important with all the Ola Rogues going around. Assassin's Blade is mainly here just for the face damage. It is 12 damage for 5 mana over time, and we are going to have a lot of time because it does take a while to draw into Alarmabot combo. Anti-Keelbot, I just found that I needed some healing to stay alive in this deck long enough to make the combo go off. Vanish, we're not going to have any minions out on the board most of the time, so Vanish is actually an okay card. You can quote-unquote clear their board, which is good enough to keep you alive an extra couple turns if you need it. Sprint, sort of already talked about, but you really need the card draw and it combos with prep. And Malygos, spell damage +5. It's what you need to just go off at the very end and kill them with all the damage you got in hand. Let's take this monstrosity into ranked and see if it's possible to win. Okay, so we're against a priest. Priest is pretty hard because they can heal as much as they want to, and we only have a finite amount of damage here. But we'll see how it goes. So I throw back everything. With this deck, I'm pretty much hard mulliganing for Malygos. With Freeze Mage and other decks that rely on a single card, like Alexstrasza, you know, even Freeze Mage can win the game without Alexstrasza, but with this deck, especially against Priest, you cannot win the game without Malygos. So I could drop a Doomsayer here, but Priests aren't known for dropping scary things on turn 2, so I don't want to preemptively Doomsayer here. I want a Dagger, and then I sort of debate whether or not to hit, because I do have a 3-mana play next turn, and you usually don't want to hit it with your Dagger to face if you have a 3-mana turn next turn, because then you can't re-Dagger. That's usually the rule I go by for Miracle Rogue decks, but in this case, we're just so desperate for face damage that I'm going to do it. He plays a Shrinkmeister. There's a couple different ways we could take this Shrinkmeister out. We can backstab it, and if we backstab it, I guess we would re-Dagger and Deadly Poison and hit face. We could do sort of a preemptive Doomsayer, but again, I'm not really that scared of Priest building up an early board real quick. Or we could go with what I do think is the best option, which is to cycle with the Fan of Knives, coincidentally doing 1 damage to the Shrinkmeister, and then using the rest of our Dagger to kill the Shrinkmeister. He Thought Steals, and our deck is like a hard counter to the Thought Steal almost. I mean, Deadly Poison is useless for him, Preps and Vanish are useless for him. There's all kinds of cards in this deck that he does not want. So we just, drop down the Loot Hoarder there. That's pretty much the only play. He does a Injured Blade Master coin, heal the Injured Blade Master. That's not too bad because we can take it out. I'm going to hit with the Loot Hoarder first to see what I draw, I guess. But then after that, most likely we will be re-daggering and Deadly Poisoning and then hitting the Blade Master, because you don't want the Blade Master to survive for a Priest, because they will heal it up to the point where you can't kill it anymore. Alright, so here I guess I think about dropping Doomsayer preemptively. we're getting to the point of the game where dropping a Doomsayer can give the opposing deck some fits, because they'll have to just pass the turn probably. But I don't think it's good enough yet. So he does a second Blade Master heal, same thing he did last turn. And now I'm going to drop the Doomsayer because I don't have any other way to deal with the Blade Master. And priests normally have plenty of ways to kill a Doomsayer, so I'm not really banking on this actually hitting, but if it does, it'll be pretty good. So he drops the Northshire Cleric. Looks like he's going to hit face, so he probably has some way to take out the Doomsayer, I'm guessing. A Sabotage, so he comboed the Sabotage with the Cleric. So he actually did get a useful card out of the Thought Steal, which is a little unfortunate. Second card he got out of the Thought Steal was Conceal. Conceal's not as good. So, overall, not a great Thought Steal for him. And we draw a second Doomsayer, and I'm not sure if he had difficulty dealing with the first Doomsayer, or if he was just thinking a long time to make sure that he comboed the Sabotage correctly and everything. But we're going to drop the second Doomsayer because he doesn't have damage on board to kill it, and hopefully he doesn't have a Shadow Word Pain in hand since he took so long last turn deciding what to do. He drops second Northshire, so he's going to draw 2 cards. And he's going face. We'll see. Oh, Doomsayer survived, so it actually hit. And he's got a clear board now. I just used the Phantom Knives to cycle. If you haven't played or seen someone playing combo type rogue before, that may look really strange to you, but it's pretty common practice. There's not really good targets in Priest to Phantom Knives. You just want to draw your cards as quickly as possible. So even though Fan doesn't affect the board, just do it anyway. Get the cards. Second Thought Steal, hopefully that one's a little bit worse than the first one he had. And he's got 5 mana and he just heals, so he must have a lot of reactive cards in his hand. Doesn't say much about the cards he Thought Stole from us, because there's not really any cards he could have Thought Stolen that he would want to play for 5 mana, I don't think. Anyway, so we got our Assassin's Blade and Deadly Poison. That's a combo you definitely want to have to be able to put together in the course of the game. And we're just going to start going face. We have 15 damage left from the Assassin's Blade, and he has 20 health left. Of course he can heal, but that is getting us close to killing him. Ooh, and he got our Malygos. So, Malygos plus Holy Fire kills us. So, I'm thinking you definitely want to sap the Malygos. We have the Prep Sprint combo in our hand, so we can draw more cards. I was counting my cards there to make sure I didn't overdraw. Looks like I'm not going to. So this still leaves us with enough mana to sap. Ooh, and we got Conceal and Malygos. So we can do all this in the same turn. We can sap, Alarmabot, Conceal, and then we've got some burn damage in our hand for when Malygos comes out. We're looking really good here. The combo's coming together, and we even made him overdraw. Wasn't even thinking about that when I considered sap. And Belcher is actually a really good thing to burn from him. Oh, Akanai. If he has Akanai Circle, the Alarmbot's not gonna make it. Oh dear. Okay, so even a concealed Alarmabot oftentimes does not survive. But wait a minute, we gotta start counting our damage here, because he didn't heal this turn. He dropped Akanai before he healed, so he can't get above 15. So we've got 5 from our dagger. We've got a Malygos, which is plus 5 spell damage. And then we can prep. And Blade Flurry will do 5 plus 5 is 10. That's 15 damage. So I think we won. Malygos, hit, prep, Blade Flurry, Got him. We won with an Alarmobot deck. I think that was pretty typical of what Alarmobot does. He goes out there, you conceal it, you spend all of the whole game trying to build up cards to keep him alive, and he dies anyway. But there you have it. An Alarmobot game. Here's another deck that I tried out when I was trying to get Alarmobot to work. It's just like a gigantic ramp druid. Got all the big dudes in it. Got almost all the ramp available for druid. And it can work. It works against control decks. It's pretty sketchy against aggro decks, but I think it's a cool thing to try.